Welcome, everyone. When Words Collide 2022, we have the famous Jonas Saul on self-editing. Tell us about yourself, Jonas.
Well, I'm just an average guy. No, okay, well, I truly am, but I'm just a writer. And I've written 47 novels now, and 32 of them are in my Sarah Roberts series. I'm also a freelance editor at imaginepress.org, and I am now acting as an agent for several authors as I am pitching and striking up deals for authors. Very exciting. And that's really what I'm doing, writing, editing, and pitching all the time.
Wow. So this is a whole new role for you because your history has been thriller novelist extraordinaire.
Well, you know what? That's a great lead into, I sold several million books as an author, and really got into the editing thing because I saw some authors needed some help, and I love to do that. And I found going to conferences and doing blue pencils, I saw that a lot of authors needed that extra step. So I sort of got into that. Then I started finding books that were incredible and they didn't have representation. And I know several publishers and I know people in Hollywood. So I was talking to a few producers of mine and friends of mine, and I said, you really should look at this book or that book. And well, copyright rules and all, I don't want to talk to 15 authors. So why don't you send it to me? So I had to ask the author. And so before you know it, I'm, the one in the middle between people who can make purchases and great books. So it just sort of organically fell into, I have to send you a contract. We got to make all this legal. And here I am now representing, actually, I have 10 authors I represent, and 7 of them are at publishers right now, with one who's already sold and offers on the table. So it's really exciting what's happening. And all this happened in the last 4 weeks. Well, it's taken place over 3 months, but it's the pitching and the sale and all that's happening over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So it's really exciting time. But you know what? I don't want to talk all about me. Let's get into this. There's lots of things to cover, and I would love to take some questions anytime throughout or at the end, whatever works best, and the host will direct me.
Sounds good. So,
are we ready?
Did anybody bring some editing?
Okay.
I can actually ask you a question, Jonas. Hi, it's Sarah. For your for self-editing, what's your, and sorry if you've said this already and I don't recall or don't remember from previous conferences, what's your process like after you have a first draft? I was just listening to yesterday, Susanna Kiersley, like she gets a first draft, she never goes back more than the last session she writes. And then after she's written the whole thing, then she kind of combs through and layers in the emotion. And I know your guys's genres are different and your writing styles are different, but after you finish, or how do you get to your first draft, and do you do like that final comb through or not? And sorry if that's not like copy editing, that's not a copy editing question, that's a content editing question, but yes, how's your process on that?
That's actually a great question, because everyone's process is different. And I love to hear that process. I didn't hear that from her. I didn't hear her speech yesterday. I'm very similar. There's one difference though. During my first draft, I layer in the emotion while I'm writing. But hold on, I put in the emotion as I write. I focus on emotion a lot when I'm writing, because, I once heard tension on every page, but it's really, it has to go deeper. It has to have emotional tension, emotional stakes. Yeah. So I really focus on every scene to make sure, even if there's just a small argument, there's got to be some kind of emotion going on, something happening, because people will remember 10 years later how they felt about a book, not what the scene was, the character's name, and so on. So that being said, I like to put as much emotion as I can on every page. Now, I'm done my first draft. I always go back once more, at least, and make sure everything's clean and as best as I can prior to sending it to my editor. But while I'm going through, I'm really going through the second draft. For me, is always an emotional read through. It's an emotional second draft. So I'm basically the same as what she said. The only difference is I'm really focusing on emotion even in the first draft. And then I'm re-looking, I always ask my characters, how did they feel about that? Like there was something happened, they lost something, or they someone was kidnapped, or how does the family member feel about that? Well, we all know they're going to be distraught, but how do they really feel? And I go even deeper, and then I really want to see that. I don't want to type they were distraught. No. No telling. Telling is vague. Showing is vivid. So I really want to show all that and really focus on all the cues, the eyebrow, all the external, everything to show the emotion. It's so important. So anyway, I go through and do all those emotional edits on the second round through. Then I give it to the editor, and I give it to the get it back, and I do my revisions, and I send it to my beta readers, and I'll often go back through once more just to make sure it's just right before I send it to the publisher. Or if I'm a hybrid author, so some of the novels I upload myself, so then it's ready to go. But that's really my process. First draft, one read through, off to everybody else, back for another read through. But I think emotion is where the book should be. So I do emotion first as much as possible, and then second, it's my emotional read through. So
awesome.
I hope that helps.
That is perfect. Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Yes. All right.
Okay. So important. Listen, I want to cover a couple of things that are vital to this industry. I think it's so important. And I'm not actually seeing this. I see there's 4 messages in chat, so I'm not hearing you, but I can either look at that in a few moments or have the host interrupt me. But I really wanted to mention a few things that I'm seeing as an agent, as an editor. Okay, first and foremost, writers should just write. Don't worry about editing. And here you are in, ironic it is, here you are in a self-editing class. Look, there's nothing wrong with learning more about how to edit. That's fantastic. This is a great thing to do. I've done it myself. You want to write. The more you learn about editing, the better you will be a writer, and so on and so on. So this is a great place to be. But at the end of the day, make sure you focus on writing and just get the book done. Now, everything I'm about to tell you, I really recommend you don't do any of this until the first draft is done. If you are not done the first draft, you're 30,000 words in, you're 50,000 words in, you're going to be at 80 when you're done, but you're only at 50,000, and you start editing, you start going through, well, let me, redo this chapter, let me redo that. Sometimes that is a black hole that you will sink into on time. And before you know it, 3 months will go by and you have no new words written. This I've seen happen so many times. I recommend don't do any editing whatsoever until you have done your first draft. So that's my caveat before I start talking about all these little points I want to make. But now, as an agent, the submissions I'm getting, the most common mistake I'm seeing, and I have to tell you, the last 20 submissions I received, 19 of them have this mistake. It is the formatting of the manuscript. They're completely unformatted to industry standard. So I'm gonna, if you have your pens and paper ready, I'd like to just point out, here's what they need to be, not just for me, for everybody. See, here's the problem. If you don't have it formatted right, I can still read the book. That's fine. I can read the book and decide if we're going to take it or not, or if it's a good read or not, or whatever. It's all subjective. But if you don't have it formatted, the publisher won't take it. I have to go and format it now, or reach out to the author and tell them how to format it. Publishers won't take it because when you are converting to different files, it screws up all the spacing and so on. So here's the list. I know we're limited on time, so I'm going to speed through this list. And it's being recorded, so I think it's going to be posted somewhere. But here's how it works. Everything should be 12 font size, 12 Times New Roman, nothing else ever. For industry standard, you can write in whatever font you want. I write in Palatino Linotype or whatever it's called. I don't have it in my head, but that's the one I write in because I think it's the prettiest. But I convert it to Times New Roman when I'm submitting. Double spaced. All manuscripts have to be double spaced. No extra spaces between paragraphs. You can easily set all these things up. Word has all the tools. If you don't know how, go to YouTube. There'll be tutorials there. Reach out to someone, email me. I'll show you how, no problem. So no spaces between paragraphs. All paragraphs must be indented. Now, this is key. They have to be indented. It has to be an indent, but use the ruler on the top of the Word document. Do not use the tab key ever. In fact, if there's even one tab key used in a manuscript, publishers will call their agent and say, what is this? I have actually taken manuscripts, set the ruler, and have to go through the entire 350 pages and get rid of all the tabs for people. And I'm tired of doing that. And just this is what gets to a point where I'm often saying, great book, but I'm sending it back and saying, can you fix all these things? So it looks professional when you send it already set. So no tab keys ever. No extra spaces between paragraphs. I think I covered that. Use a Word doc or docx. Never send it in an ODT or an RTF, or unless specified, always send in a Word doc or docx. I'm getting manuscripts in an ODT. I have to convert it myself. And then the conversion screws things up. So send it properly. Also, left justify, never centered, or never right justify, always left, and it'll be jagged on the other side, on the right, but that allows editors to see if there are extra spaces. If the publisher wants to do something different, that's on to them. One space after periods, never two. That is gone with the old typewriters, and yet to this day, even last week, I had a manuscript with 2 spaces after every period, and it's maddening because it'll wreck so much. It costs us so many troubles with that. And finally, use page breaks when you have a chapter. Use page breaks. Don't just get to the end of the scene, enter to the next page and say chapter 12. Type chapter 12, click on it and hit page break, and it drops. So no matter how much you're editing the scene above, if it goes longer or shorter, that chapter 12 stays at the top of the next page. So those are really important things.
It's really good to know, and it's not
Comment there.
something that's very difficult either. It's just something that needs to be done to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't realize how many people didn't know these rules. And you can Google these things. But I just didn't know how many people didn't, because I just had 20 submissions in the last week. And of the 20, only one was industry standard. Only one. And some of the writing was pretty decent, but only one was industry standard. So, and I thought that was more common, is all I'm saying. So I really want to focus on that. Now, next thing I really have to push, and I don't know how, this is a common thing I'm talking about weekly with my authors, the people I'm editing for, and so on. You have to decide the market you want to sell in. So what I mean by that is, you might be a Canadian. If you're a Canadian and you're writing in Canadian English or American English, okay, my suggestion is you have to write in American English. So here's why. American English is what sells in New York. You want to sell in America, you got to have American English. I can't take a book written in Canadian English, and I'm not just talking about the U in flavor or color. No, I'm talking about everything. There's so many differences in American and Canadian English. Yeah, if you want to sell to a publisher in America, you want global sales, you want to be on Amazon.com, you must be in American English. If it sells in Britain and they want to change it into British English, that's fine. They'll buy the rights of your IP, your intellectual property, and they'll make the changes. But you have to be in American English. Now, here's why. Canadian English, you may throw sticks and stones at me here, but Canadian English really isn't any version of English. It's a convoluted mix of British and American. I'll tell you why. Listen, it's got half American already. Like the word recognize has a Z in Canadian English. So does American. But British has an S. American English has double quotes for dialogue. So does Canadian. But British has one, single. So are you actually halfway to British English and you're just afraid to go all the way? Or are you, I find Canadian English so hard to read, so difficult and challenging to, publishers don't like it, agents don't like it. Now, if you really want to write in Canadian English, you have already limited your ability to make sales by over 80% of the future of the book. If you're only writing for yourself, your family, you're writing a biography for your kids, and you really don't care about these things, then, oh my goodness, that's no problem. Keep it in whatever English you want, no problem whatsoever. But if you're writing commercial fiction, you want to get it out to the world, you are looking for even to make an income from it one day or make a living, there is no way you're going to do that in any version of English unless it's American. I guarantee it. I've written 47 novels. They're all in American English. And all the publishers I work with, all the editors I talk to in America, New York, my agent, my literary agent, nobody's going to touch your book in Canadian English, unless you're selling to a Canadian publisher. But if you're selling to a Canadian publisher with a Canadian agent and you're only going to get Canadian sales, well, then again, you're not going to be able to make any money off just selling in Canada. And Brits will wonder why it's not in their English and American. Back okay right now?
Yes.
Okay, I was just talking about the American Canadian English. I was actually summarizing coming to the end, but kind of forgot that last point. So anyway, it's just so important to be in American English.
Quick question for you.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I'm just going to ask about the
Sorry?
how do the Canadian
Okay.
publishers feel about getting American English? Is there any feedback on that?
I heard something from the host, but I don't know what you said.
What do Canadian publishers feel about American English?
Oh, you know what? Generally, they don't mind. They understand that you were trying to do your best in writing it in American. But Canadian publishers will prefer, most of them, like Books We Love out of Airdrie and a few others, will prefer it in Canadian. So as I said, though, if you're going to do it in Canadian and go to a Canadian publisher, the problem with that, and there really isn't a big problem with that, but you're not going to have commercial success around the world in Canadian English. That's all. And that was the last point I was saying. If you don't know the difference between Canadian English and American, that's okay. Just hire an American editor to fix it. That's all. That's the key. I had an American editor when I started, and I needed it all to be in American English. So over the years, I learned the difference. So it's really important. I really feel it is. Unless, again, you are getting a Canadian agent and a Canadian publisher, and that's as far as you want to go. But it'll have to be changed to go to New York. The publishers in New York and studios in LA don't want Canadian English.
Just confirming now, this is really just a setting on your keyboard, isn't it?
No, unfortunately. You can definitely put it as a setting and it'll pick up a lot of the spelling. Like traveling has 1 L in American, 2 in Canadian and British, for sure. But the word toward with no S, that's American. Towards with an S, that's British and Canadian. Backwards, upwards, back, all of those are with an S, they're all Canadian and British, but without the S is American. There's many American English isms that only a proper editor will know.
Wow. Okay, well, I think we should get some questions answered.
Sure.
From Lou. What are your thoughts on editing tools like Pro Writing Aid? I've run published works through it, and the tool spits out a lot of proposed changes. There's a balance act between editing and voice, correct?
Well, you know what? I do think those things are great. Pro Writing Aid, Grammarly, they're wonderful. Actually, I've used Grammarly myself on projects, but the problem with Grammarly is for every 1,000 suggestions, only 600 are correct. Now, I know that sounds a little pretentious. Here I am I'm an editor and I'm telling Grammarly they're wrong. It's not that they're wrong, but they are sometimes. They often will only, every time you see a name in a sentence, they put a comma in front. And it's not all the way. Every single time it's supposed to be that way. I have to go back and make sure that what Grammarly did was correct. And sometimes they do suggestions on sentence structure and they move things around and they're incorrect in some cases. So Grammarly, you've got to take it with a grain of salt and really make sure that, the commas on independent clauses, they're very, very good with that. They're very good with that. If you just went through Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid and only did commas and punctuation, I would say, but be careful, 1 second, but commas, I would say take 98% of the commas. But punctuation, hey, this is fiction. There is no place in fiction for semicolons, colons, exclamation marks, semicolons and colons. Oh, they're terrible in fiction. They're only for nonfiction. You shouldn't have them in fiction at all. If you have one in your manuscript, it's okay. But if you have semicolons throughout, the publishers and the editors are going to take them all out, or they won't even like the book. They'll find it distracting. Where Grammarly will put semicolons in. So you've got to be very careful. Someone says must banish M dashes too. 100%. All kinds of punctuation are a distraction to readers. Limit punctuation as much as possible. If you must have an M dash, it's okay. You can use it. Watch ellipses. Use them properly. There's only one way to use them in American English. By the way, Canadian English uses them differently. Don't use them the way, if you're going to use American English, be consistent. And go ahead and use an ellipses. But I mean, one per page is too many. I've seen authors who have 10 per page. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Once they do that, I'm taking them all out. They've gone too many. It's too much. And it's distracting to readers. So these are things that Grammarly will be putting in. So you've got to be careful, Pro Writing Aid, Grammarly. Please use them. It'll show you, oh yeah, that sounds better. Oh yeah, I can see where I missed that. 100%. But study each one they suggest and only put it in if you really feel it should be there. Then hire an editor and they'll show you how it needs to be edited.
I think we know a good one named Jonas.
Yeah, I do edit in American. And if I have Canadian clients and they tell me they want Canadian and here's the reason. And sometimes they're actually valid reasons. So make sure you know what you're doing and then go with be consistent. So I do edit in both and can do it effectively because I've been doing this for years. I just prefer American.
Yes.
Mm.
Quick question. Is there a book that you would recommend for American English, like a reference?
My first reference would be Grammar Girl. Grammar Girl. She's written several books. Quick and Dirty Tips is a book of hers. I studied that book. Geez, 2017. I'll never forget it. I literally, every single page, I had to make notes. I had no idea this. I had no idea that. Some things I was like, no, it couldn't be. And I looked it up. She was right every single time. This woman's brilliant. And she had the towards. Her rule is if it's going to be in American English, they usually are, what did she call it? They prefer to chop letters off words. So more often than not, like 95% of the differences are less letters in American English, taking the S off towards, taking the U out of color. So if you like jewelry is jewel, R-Y, jewelry in American English, but in British it's jewelry. It's jewel with L-E-R-Y, jewelry. It's much longer. So these are things that it's so fascinating to read about. And I'm an editor. I love this stuff, memorizing it all so I know what I'm doing. Not all writers need to know this, but just, think about what you're going to do and go forward and go forward.
Okay, we got lots of questions pending, so I'll jump in.
Let's do it.
Can you give some example of how to convey emotion in our language?
Oh, well,
from Shelley Capsian.
Sure. When it comes to emotion, I don't per se, I can talk about it, but I can't really say I can give you an example in language. Let me give you an example though. Emotion, the most important things you have to show it. Okay, please don't tell us that the character, so let's just say his name is John. John felt nauseated or something at the news. They're sitting in a kitchen. He's at a kitchen table, and his wife walks in, and he feels sick. Don't just tell us he feels sick. Show us putting his hand on his stomach. Show us resting his head on his hand, looking away from her. Show his distress. And then have her, let's just make something up. Have her accuse him of something. He stole something, or he's cheated on her, whatever. And he hasn't, okay? He hasn't. But when she speaks, we'll do it in his POV. When she speaks, he can hear her tone of voice. He looks up at her and he sees her ears are turned red. Her face is a vein on her neck or her forehead. Have something to show her anger. And even her arms are crossed, body language. And then, he was writing something. So he takes he's got a pen, and he takes his pen and he slams it down onto the table and says, "How dare you?" So slamming the pen down is terrific, showing so much emotion. Then she says something further. "I have proof." Well, he didn't do it. So, and he's really pissed off. So then he jumps up to his feet so fast, the backs of his knees smash his chair back, and it hits the wall and startles her. And she steps back from, like, it's violent. No one's screaming. There's no exclamation marks. But in this scene, you can feel that emotion. You can feel the tension rising. These are so important cues that use the furniture, use everything, use the air. Have someone walk up to someone and blow in their face or something. "Get out of my face," and then or something. Anything you can do to show emotion is so powerful. I never want to see felt or was in manuscripts. Just show it. I hope that answered some of what you were looking for.
Very dramatically. Thank you. So next question is, how many points on the ruler for the indent?
Oh, hey, you know what? That as long as you put an indent, I'm happy, but I usually go half a point. So your paragraphs are like this, and your indent is half. I don't know how. Yeah, it's I don't have a Word doc open.
0.5.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
That's a nice standard.
And it's a setting. It's you don't have to tab. It's a setting that you have when you start a new paragraph, right? That you
Absolutely never tab. That's right. You literally go up to the top and adjust it. Even if you've written a paragraph and it's a block of text, adjust it over. You'll see the first line moving, and that's the end. You're done.
no tabs.
No tab. And then from the rest of the manuscript, it will stay that way. If it ever, for some reason, has a glitch and suddenly it's gone to block again, you literally just highlight the area and move it over again. You're good to go.
There you go. And it's settings are something every writer should explore at some point. So encouraging to use the question mark on Word or whatever program you're in and get to know your program a little better. So Carol asks, should chapter start at the top of the page or 1/3 of the way down the page?
I don't know if there's an industry standard for that. For instance, in my books, everything starts at the top. Other books, halfway down. Some books are more than half, and they have a little symbol or an emblem or a logo or a picture or something. Some books have chapter 12. Other books have the POV name. So this is Franklin's chapter, and then the next one says Susie. That's all it says. So every book is different. I don't know if there's an industry standard there. Set it any way you like, as long as you set it with a page break. Your agent or your publisher will adjust.
And continuing on with a different question from Angelica, should the chapter heading be left aligned or centered?
Where it says chapter 12, that's centered. Yeah, I didn't mention that. That's a great question. The text, the novel, the story, left aligned. The chapter had titles and headings centered.
Okay. And so, here we go, a continuation. Amy Jo, what do you do between scenes?
Oh, between scenes, as long as you're leaving a space, a discernible space, no problem. But the most common thing to do are 3 asterisks. And the 3 asterisks are centered. So we're talking scene breaks. And do as many scene breaks as you like, please. Chapters and scene breaks speed pace. And white space on the page speeds pace. So the more scene breaks and the more chapters and the more times you hit enter while you're typing, speeds pace. So please do scene breaks. And when you're doing a scene break, put the 3 asterisks or the 3 octothorpes. They're actually the pound sign, but they're called an octothorpe. So put 3 pound signs. That works for fiction. Yes.
So is the pound sign or the asterisk American or English, or that's just the 2 choices?
Basically the 2 choices. You know what? Every publisher does something different. I was editing a book this week they had police line do not cross as their separation. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Scene ended and there was a line that said, police do not cross, police do not cross, police right across it. And then there was another space and then the next scene started. And I thought it was brilliant. So look, the publisher does that. All you need to do is the 3 asterisks or the 3 pound signs and you're good.
Love it. So next question, no center the chapter heading or use the heading style so it's easier to navigate in Word. That's the way it's written from Meg.
Okay, I'm thinking you're asking about the chapter heading and it should be centered.
Yes. Or use the heading style so it's easier to navigate.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're talking about changing yeah, you know what? A lot of people do that. I don't. I literally just type everything and I type chapter 14 or whatever. And then I what do you call it? I center it and then I hit the page break. So it drops to the next page and then I start typing. And I leave it sitting there. If I need to do any searches later, I just search the sentence or the word or the character, or I just type in chapter 14, goes right to it.
Just a quick question. When you say page break, could you also do Control Enter?
Don't know.
That's
know what
next
that is.
page?
Sorry, I don't know. I don't think so. There's I don't know though. There's an actual button that says page break. Wherever your cursor's sitting at, you just hit page break and it drops to the next page. So if there is a shortcut to that, then that's something you'll have to look into. I've never used the shortcut. Actually, in fact, I kind of don't know shortcuts because I'm very manual. I like to physically go and hit the button, physically move my ruler. I physically do everything so I know it's 100%.
So you're not a styles guy?
No.
Okay, that's all right. So next question, is there a program that converts text to American English or British English?
Not that I'm aware of. I think it's always manual. Yeah, it's always manual. It's page by page, line by line. It's manual. British writing, I don't know how they come to this, but they often use more commas than we do in American. There's so many differences. I've edited British authors and they've asked me to put it into American, and it's a lot of work. Canadian English is not so bad because you're halfway there already. But anyway, it's a lot of work, and it's just so much better to be an American from the get-go.
And in the same vein, Ashlyn asks, and I think this goes back to Grammar Girl, how do we recognize the idiosyncrasies of Canadian English?
Generally, if someone's written an entire book in Canadian, you'll see it right away from page 1 or 2 by the spelling. Okay. You'll see it right away. Punctuation, American English and Canadian is virtually identical. So punctuation, you won't tell. It'll be the spelling. It'll be words like gray. Gray, the color gray with an A is American. With an E, it's the rest of the world. So British, Canadian, all use E's. But American, it's an A. But you know what's funny? I edit American authors and they've got an E. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? You don't know your own gray? Come on. And so this is comical. But anyway, and I'll highlight it. That's American English here. So let's fix that. There's so many differences. But many people don't know the difference between further and farther. Farther, far, how much farther do we have to go? Farther is literal distance. Further is figurative distance. So, you know, a lot of people don't know the difference between blonde with an E and blonde without an E. They say inanimate objects are blonde with an E, and they're not. They can never have the E if it's in blonde colored wood. It can never have the E if it's like the Starbucks blonde roast. That's grammatically incorrect. And all this stuff you can find online. It's on grammargirl.com. All this stuff's there. A lot of people don't know the difference in many different words. And so anyway, it's okay though. You're a writer, just write. And that's what editors do.
Okay.
Editors have fixed all that.
And we have more questions about the Canadian English. So Raven asks, just a bit confused, what if you are a British English writer?
Right. So here's what happens. If you're British, this is a great question, actually, because here I am telling you all go American. If you're a British citizen living in London, let's just use that as an example. You're Lee Child, Neil Gaiman. These people are British. I get it. They can write in British English and they sell to a British publisher and they do well. And then their agent sells them in America and Americans convert it. But they're already a British person and they already sold in Britain. And then when it comes to America, it's converted to American English, because I'll tell you something, I've read these authors, I've read many of the Jack Reacher books, and I've read many, you know, The Lane at the End of the Ocean, The Ocean at the End of the Lane with Neil Gaiman. But when I read it, it was in American English because it was converted to American English. They have editors who do that in New York. The reason they do that, though, is because these authors in Britain are big sellers. Now, Canadians halfway, more than half. You're 70%, 75% American English already. You're doing the quotes the same. You're doing words like recognize the same, as I mentioned earlier. You're almost there. And then you're leaving a few things on the table. And neither country, America is I sell 85% of my income, 85% of my sales are in America alone. The rest are Britain, Canada, Australia, and then the rest of the world. My income to allow me for the last 15 years to live anywhere in the world I want, travel around, all American income. So it's American English. When I sold my books to publishers, they do the changes for you. I couldn't come to the table with a Canadian English book. I wouldn't have sold it. It wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have sold millions of copies in Canadian English. So I'm speaking about it particularly because this is a conference in Canada, and I'm thinking there were a lot of Canadians here, and I get this with editing. I have Canadians who reach out to me, hey, can you edit my book? I'm like, oh yeah, listen, I kind of need to change this to American. Oh, why? And here's why. And they're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. So I wanted to make sure you knew that. But if you're a British citizen, feel free to write in British English directly, no problem. But at that point, then just query British agents and British publishers. Don't send British English to New York unless your agent's sending it or your publisher's sending it.
Okay, well, we're at 9:40 and I got 35 more questions.
Oh.
So I don't know, we've got some more on the Canadian English stuff. I'm gonna say that I think we've covered this pretty well. And there's been comments about using the libraries and the spell check in American. And check out Grammar Girl. So I'm going to go right by those questions because I think we've done this one as much as we need to do. There is a question. Wendy asks, if you don't mind me asking, are you accepting queries right now as an agent, Jonas?
Absolutely. I'm completely open for queries. Number one, anybody wants to send me a query letter, I would love to see it. So do that. Anyone wants to send me any questions that you're not getting answered now, please email me. I will answer your questions. So I don't care if I get 100 emails, just give me, 5 days or 3 days or whatever. I'll get back to you. I've got lots to do, but I love to respond. So if you don't get it answered, reach out to me, put some questions together. I'll answer them. And I've always got time to answer emails. And yes, Imagine Media Literary Group is open for queries, and submissions are open. It's imgliterary.com.
There we go. And are you familiar with the William Shun manuscript formatting guide? It aligns with what you have talked about This is Lou asking.
No, I'm not familiar with that person's guidelines. No, I'm only familiar with industry standard. I deal with publishers. I'm dealing with publishers in New York. I just sold a manuscript 4 days ago. The contract came in and they were telling me how perfect this was edited and how perfect it was formatted. And thank you for sending something that was industry standard. These are the rules that I adhere to. If somebody else has some rules, I'm sure they're quite close to what I've suggested in this message.
And which Grammar Girl book is the best one to assist in American English?
I know she's got a few, but the one that I don't have the exact title. I'd have to look it up on Amazon, which I can do, but I don't think we have a lot of time. But it's called Quick and Dirty Tips. So it's the actual book that it's 350 pages, and it's literally page after page of amazing tips. Yeah, I think somebody just typed it.
Oh, yeah. And any tips for compelling opening lines from Kelly? Okay.
Another great book is Elizabeth Lyon's book. Oh, geez, I love this book. Well, while you ask me the next question, I'll look it up because it's.
Do you agree that adverbs
incredible.
should be avoided at all costs?
Not avoided at all costs, but yes, they should be avoided.
So
it's watch your ly adjectives too.
Oh, here's one. What do we do about non-American idioms?
Are we with each other still?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
What do we do about? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. What do we do about non-American idioms? E.g., the American translation of Harry Potter uses scamper instead of the original scarper. That is pretty much completely incorrect.
Well, again, Harry Potter, she's a British author, so she can get away with it. And, at one point she was richer than the Queen. So when you're Stephen King, you're J.K., you're James Patterson, you can do whatever you want. I wouldn't recommend breaking too many rules until you have made it. You write what you don't. I also don't believe in pulling punches. When I write what needs to get on the page to forward the story, what's necessary for the plot. And sometimes I write things that are, say, shocking or hard to read. And I know I'm writing it, and I'm concerned my reader's going to see, hey, I did it in a book called, I think it's called The Delivery was the book I did it in. Anyway, and I had so many emails saying, oh, that scene, when you wrote that. And so I know I'm going to get a response, but I don't pull any punches. So if you feel that you want to write an idiom or a particular thing that not many others will know it, it's okay.
All right.
By the way, that Elizabeth Lyon book is a writer's guide to fiction. It's a must in every author's library. A Writer's Guide to Fiction by Elizabeth Lyon. It's incredible.
Lyon?
Lyon, correct.
Lyon. Okay. Diane asked, for a picture book to be sold on Amazon, would you advise a Canadian version, a US version, and a British version for each market?
Oh, hey, that's a great question. Well, gee, if you can do it, if you know the difference and it's going to be consistent and a mistake will not be made, an error on the page, why not? I say go for it.
And next question from Ardell. I published a trilogy in Canadian English. Do I have to get new ISBNs if I want to translate them into American English?
Geez, I don't know about that. That I actually don't know. I've never had to get a new ISBN unless it was changing a format. The ebook has a different ISBN than the paperback. But if I was just going to re-upload the book edited in another version of English, I would literally just re-upload it. The thing is, people buying a book in Canada at Amazon.ca, for instance, and it's in American English. Canadians don't mind. I'm a Canadian. I'm from Toronto. I've lived in Canada my whole life. I've been reading books since I was jumped out. I was alive. So all of the books I've ever read are in American English. I can't think of a single book I've even read in Canadian English. So put it in American and the Canadians will read it. They won't have a problem with it. If you leave it in Canadian, when the Americans read it, you're going to get a few reviews. You will get a few reviews that say, hey, I like the book, but the guy can't spell.
Any vital advice following for the ISBNs? So if you change format or make substantial non-typo changes to the text, you don't need to do anything except just re-upload it? Well,
yes. If for instance, if I have, I've written a book and it's, and I'm going to make some editing to it. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to put it back on Amazon, a revised version. You don't need to change your ISBN. No.
Because it's the same thing with mods, right?
Yeah, it's just a few comma changes or a few words are spelled differently, or I fixed a few things. Maybe I've gone and put by Grammarly, and look at all these things I missed. Put Grammarly through it, put it back up. You're good to go. But if you're putting an entire new format or something, yes, you need a new ISBN. Unless someone knows something else here different. But if the book is, the carjacker, I don't know, it's called The Carjacker, and you wrote it in Canadian English, and now you've changed it to American, it's still the book, it's still the same story, and it's still the same ebook, then you just put it back up.
Jonas?
Yeah.
Jonas, if I could just interject quick, I think it's I think 10% is a rule. I think that's what Mark Leslie has said at different WWC conferences, that if the book is within 10%, like if you change less than 10%, which should be less than 10% if just those little tweaks, you can maintain the same ISBN as long as it's the same format. But anything beyond 10%, that was his advice, if I'm remembering correctly, but you guys asked Mark, because yes, 10%. So it sounds good. Yeah.
Thank you for jumping in. Guys, we're at the 9:48 mark. Jonas, everyone's asking for your email, so I'm wondering if you can plug it into the chat, because I'm sure you're about to be inundated with 50 or 80 or 100 queries. And just wanted to thank everybody for attending today. And Jonas, the time has just flown right by. We're at the 2 minutes, 12 minutes to the hour. So if you have any concluding statements, now is the moment.
The only thing I would say there, I just threw my email in. Hope everyone can see it. The only thing I could say is I had never heard that 10% thing before. I'm wondering where he gets that. I'm not saying he's wrong or anything, but I have changed manuscripts more than 10%. I have. When I first uploaded a book in 2010, I made a lot of errors with it, and it was a mistake. I had done it with a pseudonym. Anyway, I pulled it, and what I did was I fixed something that was massive, way more than 10%, way more. I put it back up and I contacted Amazon and said, guys, it's a new book. And I already had several hundred people buy it. But not all of those people will have read it. Can you fire off an email to hit the update button in their account? And they said, no problem. And they did that. They fired off an email. It's same ISBN, same book. I've never heard that 10% thing. But over 60% of the book had to be changed because of one thing that was wrong. And I had no idea. It was a huge rewrite. And I said to Amazon, it's virtually the same book, but the characters' names, everything's different. This is the version that people should be reading. And so they sent, and when you go into your account, where you buy all your Kindles, there's a little button that says update. You click it and it sends the new version to your iPad or your Kindle or device, whatever. And it was more than 10, and they didn't make me change the ISBN or anything. I've never changed an ISBN in my life, and I've done more than 10%.
In that case, that makes total sense not to change the ISBN, and I'm not sure where he got the 10%. In that case, that even you asking Amazon, like you taking the like the due diligence, can you like update this for all the readers who bought it? That's awesome. And it's also awesome that they did that, because it's about the reader experience, right? Like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And can you hit send on your email? Because I think they're still looking for it.
Yeah, I did. Am I missing something? I see it in the stream, and I even see somebody saying, is it Jonas Saul at iCloud.com? And I said, yes. And I just added my
Do you have it on everyone, or do you have it sent to one specific person?
Yeah, there's a drop down that says to everyone or to a specific person.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I have it on one person. Send
I
chat to,
have done that a million times. That's why I said that.
well, when
There
you
we go.
asked, when you first asked me to send it, I've never actually done a comment before, so I was hoping I could do it. There, I've sent it to everyone. Jonas
Okay,
Saul at iCloud.com. No, geez, see, I did
you
it so
got an
fast.
error. Okay.
I screwed it up. iCloud.com. Jonas Saul. There, that's my email. And here's my, before everyone goes, here's my website where you can submit. And if you're looking for American spelling editing or any kind of quotes or anything, this is my other, that's my company where I do editing, imaginepress.org.
Yay. All the fun stuff. Well, amazing. It just zipped by with all your nuggets of wisdom, and thank you everyone for your questions and for attending. And we have another panel tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I do believe, Jonas.
Yep, I think I'll be attending that one.
Yes, indeed, and many more to come. Well, thank you so much for coming to us from Greece and sharing your wealth of information. And we'll be checking out those references. All too much stuff to take in, but we'll definitely take notes on that formatting and information. And thank you everyone for attending. Enjoy and have a great day.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett and Jennifer.
Thank you.